Hello students, welcome to this video on the surface area supernode part 1. Before we get started, let's read this little introductory statement. Remember, surface area refers to the total area of all of the surfaces of a 3D shape. Okay, so let's focus on the first shape, the square-based rectangular prism. So we've got a 3D diagram for you to look at here, and we say that think of this as the shape's base. So we have a square here, which is why it's under the section square base rectangular prisms. We know that a square has equal sides. So if this height here or length is 4 and this length is 4, we know that it's a square. It also has a depth of 2.5 centimeters. So if we were to draw this shape in Sketchup 8 or in 3D space, what would it look like? Well, it would look like this. We have a 4 by 4 square as its base. We also have a congruent opposite base on the opposite side. We have a depth of 2.5 centimeters. And these two green bases are connected by 4 rectangles that go around the shape. Now let's have a look at these rectangles. This rectangle has a length of 4 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters. The top, the same, 4 centimeters by 2.5. The left side, 4 centimeters by 2.5. And then the bottom, 4 centimeters by 2.5. So it's very important that we recognize this because it's really going to help us when we go to calculate surface area. So if we were to open up this shape and flatten it to create a net, what would it look like? This is what it would look like here. Okay, so at this point, could you please draw a small diagram of this net in the space provided in your note right here? But don't make it too large because we're going to need this area for our calculations. So press pause at this point, and then I want you to draw a rough diagram of this net, but I want you to make sure that you've included the measurements. The measurements are going to be very helpful when we go to calculate area. Okay, so press pause now. Okay, so now that you've drawn the net, let's start calculating the area of the individual sides. So let's start with the base. Remember, the base was a square. So if you remember from our area unit, we know the formula for area of a square. So let's start with step 1. Area of a square equals s squared. Well, what is the length of a side? Well, in this case, it's 4 centimeters. So our information line is S equals 4 centimeters. Okay? All right, so let's substitute what we know into our formula. Area equals 4 times 4 equals 16 centimeters squared. So 1 square is going to be 16 centimeters squared for its area. But how many squares were there in your net? Well, there were 2 bases and they were congruent. So we have to take this area and we have to multiply it by 2. So let's multiply it by 2 and make sure you got a calculator out. I've got mine handy here. So 16 times 2 equals 32. So we have a total of 32 centimeters squared for the 2 square bases. Okay, so what do we have that isn't a square? Well, we've already said we've got 4 congruent rectangles. They all have the dimensions 4 by 2.5. So let's go on to part 2 of our calculation. Area of a rectangle now equals length times width. It's very important that you use the proper formula when you're calculating area. Length, the longer side, is 4 centimeters. Width, the shorter side, is 2.5 centimeters. Let's substitute this into our formula. 4 times 2.5. So please use your calculator to calculate this. And I get a total of 10 centimeters squared. Okay, but hold on. How many rectangles did we say we had? Over and over, we've said that we have 4 congruent rectangles that have the same area. So we take the area of one of the rectangles and then we multiply it by 4 to get 40 centimeters squared. Okay, so now let's look at our totals. We've taken care of all of the sides of our net. We have the 2 bases, and then we have the 4 rectangles. Remember, every rectangular prism has 6 sides. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight these because we're going to need these numbers right now. Okay, so our last step for this question is the total. So, total surface area equals, so let's add these two numbers. We have 32 centimeters squared plus 40 centimeters squared. Please use your calculator. So I got a total of 72 centimeters squared. Okay, so let's write a conclusion statement. Therefore, total surface area is 72 centimeters squared. Okay, so now you know how to solve the first type of rectangular prism called the square base rectangular prism. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.